Hey friends, how are you doing?
Doing
Doing
great.
great, man. Doing great.
Cool. Mr. Lunny, we have a new guest. Who
Yes,
who is
sir.
our new guest?
This is the famous Jett
Infamous, famous.
Jett
He's right about that.
Lowrance. Yeah, infamous. Um, I guess I ran into you when you were at Hardin Simmons, and then
Mhm.
you came and student taught with me, and then he was like partners in crime with Stephen Cox for a while over in Eastland. Taught a little bit of Merkel too.
Yeah, I taught at Merkel was my first job. Taught there for 4 years.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, and has done great work. So we thought he'd be the perfect guest for this
So what's your
podcast.
what's your current location? What are you doing right now, Jett?
I'm the assistant band director at Clark Middle School.
In Abilene. Okay, cool.
Yes, sir.
Awesome. Well, welcome to Ask Mike.
Hey, thanks for
Uh,
having me.
it's kind of a simple concept. We ask questions and you guys give us smart answers. It's a lot of fun.
You're really raising the bar too.
Yeah, that's a lot of pressure.
So, uh, I have heard of you and known of you through other because of like Stephen and other places. I hear such great things, especially the concepts and some of the stuff that you do with those younger students. So, pleasure to have you, Mike. What are we going to expound on today? What's the question?
Well, we're going to discuss the triumphs and perils of doing non-varsity bands, the second band or the
Ooh.
third band. And I've never really had to be the primary teacher for a non-varsity band because I was really stupid and I just never was an assistant band director. You know, my first job, I was the head band director, and I kind of like that. So I learned the hard way. But I do know from watching my program that there's a big difference in doing a weak middle school band in Throckmorton, Texas at the time compared to doing the second band anywhere else because there's that whole stigma that the kids bring in the room with them of we are the second banders, or if you're in Allen, Texas, we're the 12th concert band. So your
Right.
first chair trumpet can't make last chair in the 11th band.
So,
Yeah.
I'm gonna just start this off with a whole lot of ignorance. Brace yourself.
I'm ready.
I would be the guy that would walk in as the non-varsity director and in my mind say, all right, nobody's going to know the difference between my band and the top band. We're going to kill this thing. We're going to be the most amazing band. Non-varsity is just a label. And I see both of you smiling.
Well, there is
yeah,
some
that's
there is some truth in that. I'll throw this to Jett.
Yeah.
But I guess with the non-varsity band, Luke McMillan's a good friend of mine, and he would do the second junior high band, and he'd work with the second high school band. And when he was a first year teacher, he came in to me after class, and he goes, "Hey, Mike, I'm having some like discipline problems. Can you come in and talk to the band?" And I said, "Yeah, Luke, I can do that, but they have to be afraid of you." Because if I come in and talk to them, they're just going to go, okay, yeah, that's what Mr. Lunny said. As soon as I leave, then, mama left and stepdad's in the room again. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? So there's some truth to what you say. And I don't know if Jed agrees or disagrees, but I've always tried to preach to my non-varsity program directors that you have to convince yourself and the kids that that is your band.
It's the number one thing. So I actually have
The
that.
number one thing.
I actually have that
Go
as the
for it,
first
Jed.
thing in my notes is you start building relationships by building what your roles are, right? So I tell my kids, like, you are my students, I am your director, and this is our band. Okay, so we frame everything like that. Of course, the result may not be the non-varsity band won't be as good as that varsity band. Like that may be out of reach, but you can make that band as good as you possibly can. You can approach it as if that band, like, you're going to push those kids as far as you can. I don't want to take them to contests and be like, oh, I got to take my non-varsity band to contests. I'm kind of embarrassed about that. I don't want, and the kids are kind of embarrassed, and you don't want to end up in that kind of position. You want the end result to be something that you're proud of, something the kids are proud of and genuinely proud of. I'm not going to lie or glaze, as the kids say. I'm not going to do that to the kids. I'm going to, be firm and fair, and be positive too, but really try to get them to a place where they sound good and they can execute their music at the highest level possible.
So I think I was being somewhat facetious. I hope everybody recognizes that.
Oh yeah.
But I think one of the things that what I'm hearing you say, it's important to say, nah, I won't do that. I'll do it this way. It might be where we say, look, we're not here to compare ourselves with any of the other bands. That's not the purpose of what we're doing. We're here to be the best that we can be.
Right. Exactly right.
And so here's the things that we have to do. We're not going to pay attention. Maybe that's a rude way to say that too, but we're going to focus on us.
Right.
I'm the director here. You're the band. Let's go be as awesome as we can be.
Right. I don't address my band as the non-varsity band. I address them as the Clack Cardinal band.
Cool.
You know?
And I tell you, from watching him in his program, he talks the talk and walks the walk, because those kids know. I've never heard him say this to his band, but those kids know that that's the most important class of the day for their director.
Exactly.
This is my band, and I don't mean that in a bad way, but it's like, this is my band, and this is what we're going to do, and y'all are great kids, and we're going to make some music in here.
Right.
And you don't worry about any other band.
That's right. Well, and then you think about your band experience, and there's some 8th graders who have been in that non-varsity band for 2 years. Yeah. And that is their middle school band experience. So you can't shortchange them of that. I mean, you want kids that are going to be in that second band. You want them to be excited about going on to high school and pursuing music forever. So you can't shortchange them mentally, emotionally, or when it comes to the instruction.
Awesome. Yeah. So let me ask you this, though. It almost seems like some of this is an issue at the beginning of the semester, or at the, as soon as we separate the bands. And I realize at middle school level, that probably happens from the word go. But once you get past the fact that I'm in this band or I'm in that band, you're just in band.
Right.
So, I realize there's things that we need to consider as educators that the kids probably don't consider. So,
and I'll tell you one,
open-ending that. So,
just as one who's been the one watching the non-varsity bands, I really think that programming of music is like 10 times more important than non-varsity, because with the top band, you can make some mistakes and they're more resilient. They can sound bad and they will get over it.
Right.
A non-varsity band, I'll let you talk to that, but a non-varsity band, they've got to sound good.
They do. Right.
Yeah. So go ahead, Jett.
So whether that's for contest or just a concert, or just the day, like, they know if they sound good or bad in class. And with the non-varsity band, you have to do a lot of coaching and tell them, hey, trust the process. Even on a 0.5, if you're reading at the beginning of the year, I would read 0.5s. Just read them down. Stuff that's going to be fun, stuff they like. You tell them, hey, this piece doesn't sound good right now. Why? Because we're meeting them for the first time. When I meet a person for the first time, I don't really know anything about them. It's really uncomfortable. I don't know how to talk to them. I don't know, I don't know how to any of that stuff. And same thing with a piece of music. You're going to sound bad at first. It's going to be awkward, but trust the process is going to, you're going to get it. I think the hardest part selecting music for non-varsity is picking music that they can sound good on, that they like. Because a lot of times I can get one or the other, but it's hard to get both.
Right.
But luckily, there's a lot of really good pieces now that are, I'm telling you, 0.5s and grade 1s that the kids will sound great on, that they'll think are fun.
Let me ask you this as you're doing that. Is there a conscious thought, and again, we're trying to help directors who might be facing this, is there a conscious thought about instrumentation? Like, sometimes I think the non-varsity band gets what the varsity band didn't want. Maybe that's a harsh way to say that. Or didn't. In other words, there's X number of horn players. We need 6 of them in the top band. You get what's left.
So, I mean, a lot of time in a non-varsity band, you may have a weaker horn section, or you may have no double reeds, no low clarinets. Maybe you have to train some students to play bass clarinets. And so, selecting your music with that in mind is important. Just take a look at the score and say, okay, are the alto saxophones doubling horns the whole time? It's a win. If they're not, rewrite it. Don't be afraid to rewrite the music. Like, it's okay. Even for like an actual UIL contest or whatever your big contest is.
Say that again for them, because people listening, I've had so many young directors go, we can change the music.
Yeah, just rewrite the parts. As long as the musical integrity is there, the judges aren't going to care or know. A lot of times they won't know. They'll go, "Oh man, that was a great horn solo, and it was an
Little
euphonium
voices
player."
sound great.
Yeah, exactly. They just won't even think about it. They'll be writing their notes, and it just doesn't matter. If it sounds good, it sounds good. Make sure the parts are covered and the students are confident. It's better than having a French horn player just crash and burn the whole time. Yeah.
Right.
And it's funny you bring up the idea of instrumentation and what's left over. Luke McMillan was such a good non-varsity band director, and he's such an incredible musician that every year we'd have tryouts for my honor band, and I'd have at least 5 or 6 kids after the results were posted and they were in my band. And they'd come in and go, Mr. Lundy, we don't want to like insult you or anything, but I really want to be in Mr. McMillan's group. So he would always get some ringers. It'd be like a
Yeah.
5th chair all region clarinet player would be in the non-varsity band. And it's just because he had such a good relationship with those kids, because he did not treat them like second band.
Right.
They weren't the lizard band or the rubber band or whatever you want to call them.
Yeah, or
all the derogatory remarks.
or the dumping ground or
The dumping
whatever.
ground,
Oh
yeah.
man, that's a whole other thing.
Yeah, they were a viable ensemble that had every bit of chance of making a sweepstakes. And I'll say this too, and Jett can verify it or call me wrong, and I've been called wrong a lot, but non-varsity band kids have a better appreciation for sounding good, and they're not offended by easy music as long as they sound good. Where the top banders, they're offended.
Yeah, they are. Like,
You know.
too easy.
So don't be afraid out there. If you've got a non-varsity middle school band, like Jett said it, man, do 0.5s until they sound really good. Then you can jump the fence and go to a 1, a grade 1 piece.
Well, you can read more that way too. Sight reading gets a lot of non-varsity bands, but if you're reading 0.5s from the beginning, I mean, you're going to be set up for success on sight reading.
Yeah, that's a great point.
Let me ask you this. Listen, I want to shoot down some I'm going to talk specifically to Jett on this. Do you think there is words are escaping me this morning for whatever reason, but there's kind of a self-image that the non-varsity band has of we're not the best players, or from the educator's standpoint of these are not the most dedicated, which I argue with. I think there's a lot of golden retrievers in the non-varsity band.
Oh yeah.
But is there a mental hurdle that you have to get over of, because even when I'm doing programs, I'm like, okay, they're taking 2, and a sub non-varsity. They're taking lots of different kids. But do you think there's a difference in the way those kids approach band or the way those kids approach the activity compared to the top band?
So, this is the hardest thing to navigate your students through. The thing you're talking about right now, just that making them feel from the very beginning like they are not lesser than. It's really tough. I would love to say I have an easy button to it, but I can just tell you the process I use, and sometimes
Let's
it
hear
works
it.
for some
Yeah.
kids, and sometimes it doesn't work
let's
for
hear
some kids. So I think it starts the beginner year, giving them an idea that okay, if you advance far enough for your beginner year, you get to be in one of our 2 advanced bands. And that's, we call the non-varsity and varsity band, or concert symphonic, whatever. And so if you pass your beginner year, you're in one of those bands. And in the current program I'm in, if you don't, you redo 6th grade year. But those are super, super, super rare. I mean, somebody who just is at 0 because maybe they missed too much or moved in or whatever. Okay. And then from that point,
Hold on. Let's address that real quick.
okay.
Do you think there's a disadvantage in us using the terminology non-varsity? Because even in athletics, it's the junior varsity, which to me is different sounding than non-varsity.
The word non, and check out sub non-varsity. What bad terminology.
It's horrible.
There's
absolutely
psychological
horrible.
impact there.
Yeah, you are lesser. You are sub and you're non.
Don't put those terms in your programs.
It might be better to say,
name the bands blue band,
symphonic,
red band, or
or
whatever. Yeah.
Yeah,
and I also think that maybe we do the disservice by calling it, and listen, I know why, but even the impact of saying the honor band, like that's the only one that has honor.
And I've messed that up. I called it the honor band when I was at
No,
Eastland
but a
doing
lot
their
of people
varsity
do.
band. But I actually think that I would not go back and do that again, because it creates a power imbalance, and I don't want that with my kids. I don't want a non-varsity kid, and I'm going to use that term to make it clear, non-varsity versus varsity kid talking to each other and there being imbalance because of what band they're in, you know.
But that is the UIL term. We can't escape that.
No.
But you don't have to
Yeah.
say it to the kid.
No, I got it.
Right.
That's kind of my point
Yeah.
that I'm making.
Yeah, the kids don't know.
Until
I
they
do-
see it in the program.
Also, I'm going to
That's
say it.
true.
I'm going to
Yeah.
say it. I don't like the non-varsity band trophies are like this big. You know what I mean? Like they're just sweepstakes trophy for non-varsity is tiny. I know
We
I'm probably
worked as hard
complaining.
as they did.
I know, but ours should be like this big.
Yeah.
We need the big one.
Yeah, the
Or-
Class A varsity sweepstakes
Yeah.
for a high school varsity band is huge, and quiet part out loud, that's the easiest one to win,
Right.
especially if you have a second or third band
Yeah.
in your program, because those kids are going to play, you know, and then you're the non-varsity, sub-non-varsity middle school, you get a trophy that's about the size of a Pop-Tart box.
Right. I know. And that's just me complaining now. But anyway,
Yeah.
you get the idea. You're right.
So-
It's
It
baked.
should all be the same size.
That
too.
mentality is baked in, is what I'm trying.
Let's make
I-
that
I-
happen. Let's start a petition.
Okay, starting right now.
Yeah,
So-
let's work on this.
I
Going to be our
hijacked you, Jett. I'm sorry. I just wanted to say that because it was in my brain that psychologically we do this. We make this harder from the jump if we're using terminology. So
Right.
back to your point, you start out by saying you could be one of our 2 advanced bands. I love that.
Right. And then I think some kids are going to feel a sting if they don't make varsity, because there's kids who, even though you may phrase it a certain way, they know that the
Right.
varsity
We're
is
all
kind of this
smart,
more
yeah.
prestige. You know what I mean? Whatever. Kids are smart, and so there's going to be a little bit of a sting on that day they find out maybe I'm not in varsity. Some kids it won't sting, some kids it will. All right, and for those kids, I'll tell you, I just keep things moving and keep things interesting in my class and hope that just fades away. That's honestly my approach, is just try to build engaging lessons, make them know that I love them and that I care about them and that I want them to be successful and really strong. And then if there's a strong player who's like, man, I wish I was in varsity, I need to make that extra special for those upper level kids, especially if they're around the bubble. Man, those need to become like my section leaders. They need to become just the people that I go to. Hey, can you demonstrate that for me? Hey, can you take this group out and work with them on this? And putting them in those leadership roles not only smooths it over, but I think it actually gives them the opportunity to do something that they might not get to do if they were in
And
varsity
grow.
band.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Mhm.
exactly.
Because I'm going to tell you this, Lee High School, it's where I went, top band, 6 trumpets out of 35.
Right. Yeah,
So there's some really good players that aren't in that top band.
100%.
So
Yeah, my
just throwing
non-varsity
that out
bands.
there.
My non-varsity bands always have ringers in them. And I have people that this last year I had a student who was a first chair all region tenor sax player, who also is a ringer on clarinet, who played clarinet and varsity and tenor sax in my band.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So sometimes guess who would be doubling the horn parts? The tenor saxophone. Yeah.
Cool. Okay. So again, we're talking about approach to teaching this band.
Mm-hmm.
So you set the standard. I mean, do you say I obviously don't think you stand up and go, all right, this is the second band. But I
don't.
expect you guys to work hard.
So yeah, I don't think of a standard for an end result. I think of a standard for the process and rehearsal. So I expect my band, if I'm teaching, I expect them to be silent, completely silent. I expect them to put forth maximum effort when they're asked to do something, and I hold them to it. You know what I mean? And I think they get it. If you hold them to high expectations, they don't take it as an insult. They take it as a pretty cool thing. They take that as a form of respect if you do it the right way. You can't berate them, but just draw your line,
Mhm.
be very clear about it. If I'm pretty simple now with it. If a kid has been warned not to talk and then they talk again, I'm just like, hey, go sit in my office and time out for a second. I'll talk to you in a little bit, and then I'll keep rehearsing.
Yeah.
You know? So it's about those expectations and the goals we set. I use goal real loosely because it's not. I don't give them completely measurable goals at the beginning like I know I should, but I tell them like first semester, here's what I want for our group. I want to create a positive and collaborative band culture. I want to develop practice plans and habits. Now I don't do practice charts that parents have to sign, but I want the kids to keep track of what they're doing so they can hopefully see a correlation between the work they're putting in and the result they're getting, or the inverse of that, right? And then I want to improve a little bit every single day. And there's a big one. I want to be more organized. And I never take grades on organization, but we practice organization all the time. We check each other's notebooks.
And flesh that out. What does that mean? Organization.
Organization. So we just do it in a little microcosm in band, and that is you have your notebook, you have your sections in your notebook to organize your music in. I provide dividers for all the kids, and when I hand something out, I tell them where to put it. They need to have a pencil every day. Show me your pencil. They need to put all their stuff back where it goes every day. They need to be careful with their tuners and enroll them a certain way. Their cases need to be on the same side of their chairs as their neighbors. When they put stuff up, I want to do it a certain way. We do it in a certain order so we don't run into each other. Like, we just try to be really organized from day one and talk about why it's important to do
Awesome.
that. Yeah.
Life skills.
Oh, yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
And I think a really cool point in all that, such good points, but one is his expectation for them to be just as disciplined as any other band in the program,
Mhm.
because it's unbelievable how many schools I go to where it's like, oh yeah, the second band's next period, and we're just lucky to get their butts in the chairs. So
Mm-mm.
I'm thinking, well, there's some kind of mental problem with these children? Are they,
So you're
you know what
selling them short. Yeah.
yeah,
Right.
and I've actually, to the point of one school, which will remain nameless, I did their top band, and for whatever terminology, and then they said, "Well, but just go ahead, go get some coffee, and then meet us at the middle school because the second high school band's coming in. We don't even want you to see them." I said, "Well, why?" I said, "Are they play poorly?" "No, they just can't behave."
Are they going to shank you?
Yeah, and I'm thinking, in my mind, it was a high school, and I'm thinking that's half your marching band.
Right.
Yeah. How in the world are you going to have a good marching band if you don't even want the clinician to even be in the same room?
Boy, it's hard to have I really, the times I need a clinician the most is the hardest time to ask for a clinician.
Yeah, it's like going to the doctor.
Yeah.
When you're at your rock bottom of, it's pitiful, especially as men. I hate to be so misogynistic, but men will be on their deathbed before they go see a doctor. And you're right. They'll call the clinician like 3 days before contest. I'm like, man, I'm sorry, you're at stage 4 at this moment.
Yeah.
So
true.
I can't help you, but you're right.
Well, I think we could probably do an entire podcast on that.
On stubborn men or bands?
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah.
But I've been waiting for the right time to throw this in.
Here we go, Jett.
I think there are challenges that go along with, and again, they're mental things that we help kids through. Because I think that we can't coddle people. It's okay, babies. You're still important. Yes, it's the second. We're not. You've already said it. We all know there's a first band and a second band,
Right.
and this is the second band we're talking about. I'm curious. Listen, I'm going to belay what I was doing for a second. Do you almost look at it, Lo, sometimes as like a feeder? You're looking for the people that maybe they didn't have a great audition or whatever. There just wasn't enough room for them this time.
Mhm.
But next year, or as they move forward to high school, you can make
Right.
great progress and you can be as good as you want to be.
So, I think Mike and I both probably have examples of, we have probably kids in mind right now. I had a student at Eastland who was a clarinet player in the second band 2 years in a row. And her sophomore year, she was a drum major. Okay. And also went on to state solo and ensemble and a clarinet ensemble her junior and senior year. There are students that are late bloomers. They just are. And what I see a lot of the times in non-varsity bands, or just from talking to people, is it sounds like people are giving up on certain kids, and just don't give up on any kid. Listen, if that kid's sitting back there and he's kind of just, it's a terrible term, but they're just kind of sitting like back there like a potato, just kind of like, just chilling, just kind of thinking about something, eventually that kid has the potential to come around. And I've had kids that I go, oh man, because I taught in one place for 8 years. Okay, so I got to see 6 through 12 and see this happen. I had one student that I just thought, I love the kid, wonderful kid, did not work very hard, was not very good until about their sophomore year, and all of a sudden they could play all the stand tune music, and that was a miracle.
The
You know what
switch
I
flipped.
mean?
Right.
It just flipped, yeah. And so there's that kid who you don't want to give up on. You always think this is going to be good for the kid, and it's going to be good for the high school program, And then you have the kids who are maybe I don't do cheer testing, by the way, in my non-varsity band. We can talk about that later if we want to, but I don't do that. So, but if
We're
you
going
can
to get
think,
to autonomy, I promise.
you can think about your first chair type player in that band. Let's say they're a 7th grader, you better believe that person is vying to be in that varsity band. And I think they should. I think they should be trying to push themselves beyond where they are and try to reach that upper level. And I think that's okay. I think it's okay to tell the kids, like, yeah, strive for it. That's great. And of course, when they don't get it, they might be disappointed, but the disappointment's just part of the process. And we all deal with
That's the word I was
disappointments.
waiting on.
Yeah.
You are in process, and everybody's process might be a different road or might take
Right.
different amounts of time, or, and some of us, we learn to love the process as the reward versus am I first chair in the top band. So,
And I tell you
Really
what,
cool.
Derek, with middle schools, if you're a high school director and you're throwing away your non-varsity middle school kids, you're in trouble, because at Wiley we had some pretty good bands, and half of my marching band, their roots were in the second junior high band. Think about that. They never played in the top group, but they developed such good leadership skills by having to do it. They were first chair trumpet in the second band, the purple band, gold band, whatever we want to call them. But then I've actually had, shout outs to some of these kids that were drum majors that never played in the top band, either at middle school or high school. But they had such strong leadership skills, and they were a good player. They weren't a great player. They were very responsible. So I think it's an idiot as a high school director that would go, "Oh, don't worry about that lizard band. We only want the top kids to get in high school." Because I guarantee I track it. You know me, I'm a numbers guy. So like if I had like 20 graduating seniors, half of those, at least 50%, or usually a little more, never played in my top band in middle school or in high school. But they graduated as seniors in the program, and they were captain of the guard, and they were percussion captain, and you know what I mean? Things of that nature. So don't throw those kids away.
No,
Right.
no.
I mean,
And
if they quit on you, you can't help it.
Right.
You can try to work it, but don't push them out the door.
But I
Right.
kind of wonder sometimes if their quitting is their decision or our fault. So let me back up just a second, because I'm going to hit Jett with this again. I do think it's important, and I want you to speak to it, that I think there's an unhealthy thing that happens sometimes of I'll take one for the team, or this is just where I am in my career ladder, and I have to take the second band. And
Right.
the expectations are what they are. I'm the guy that has to do this. I think that's wrong.
Yeah, that's a terrible approach.
Mm.
You should be in it for the kids, and those non-varsity kids are kids, just like the varsity kids are kids. And just teach them like they're human beings who need you.
Yeah, it's
Right.
not a chore. You're not mowing the yard.
Right.
It's not a chore.
I think that sounds like you're speaking to ego, and I've been there where the ego outweighs what's best for the kids. But if you can get in that, make that paradigm switch to be just all about, okay, what do the kids need? Then you're going to land on being in a good place when you teach those non-varsity kids.
I also think that it's somewhat of a stepping stone mentality sometimes.
Oh, yeah.
Sure.
Like with Jett, I mean, he's an experienced teacher, very successful. So they're very lucky to have him working the non-varsity band at Clack. In most cases, we know what happens. It's the first-year teacher doing the fourth high school band. And they have no idea what they're doing.
But
No other director steps in the room.
It's awful.
You know the routine.
It's awful.
So he speaks from a different platform because he's been part of a process that's for his life that's been such a great process of developing bands. But usually it's that first year teacher, and 3 years later they quit and sell insurance.
Right. You need to, if you're a head director with a new teacher, man, I don't know if you're listening, like you need to be with those teachers and mentor them and not berate them when they do something wrong. I've talked
Don't
to so
roll
many,
your eyes. Yeah.
oh my God, or badmouth them in front of the kids in front of a rehearsal or any of that stuff. I've heard about that stuff happen. I've been so fortunate that I've never worked with anybody that put me as anything less than an equal, at least that I felt that way. I've been really lucky, but not everybody is that lucky when they start out. So.
Well, and the other thing that I think I would bring up, the other side of that coin, is as much as we like to think that we're inspiring people, some people band is just something they love. It is not their life goal. It is not something they're going to do. They're not going to teach, not necessarily going to be a performance person, but they love being in the band.
Right.
Yeah.
And that has value.
And
They want
that's
to go
where
to
they
Six
fit.
Flags. Yeah, they
Yeah.
want to go on the trip and they enjoy the people they're around. And
What do you call them? The chicken steak?
I call them the chicken fries. The
That's
chicken fries are the ones that just want to go on the trip and eat chicken fried steak. And they're okay because you need them.
Yep.
You need those kids. So
And they-
you got to meet them where they're at.
And they benefit for your program. And I don't
Yes.
just mean like while they're in school. They're taking that with them when they graduate, when they have families. Like they're learning so many skills that they don't even know they're learning.
Yeah.
and I think that they're happy to be a part.
Oh yeah.
As
Yeah.
long as somebody's not subconsciously or consciously saying, yeah, you're the gold band.
Yeah. And I'll tell you
So-
this, I taught at one place for 19 years, and it was interesting to me statistically how many of my new beginners, I called them my band grandbabies. They were the ones that my alumni that had kids who are now in band. Probably 70 to 80% were from second banders.
Oh wow.
Isn't that interesting?
Yeah.
Because the ones that were the top band kids, their kids came through the program as, oh no, we're going to do tennis. Oh no, we're going to do something different. We do golf. They were more socialite oriented. So I found that as an interesting stat that it was the I hate to use that term, but we'll just use it for the clarity of the podcast. But the second banders who would get out, get a job, be the manager at United or whatever, and their kid would come up and they'd come in the room and they'd try and say, "Hey, my dad was so and so. He said he was in your band." And this is a true story. I won't say the name, but I said, "Oh yeah, I remember. He played in my band." And he leaned forward and said, "My mom said to tell you I'm a lot smarter than he is." And I go, "That's a good thing." And we just kind of grinned, and he ended up playing tuba like his daddy. But that was so cute. But
That's
my
funny.
mama said to tell you I'm a lot smarter than Dad.
All right. So let's make an agreement here. We keep dancing on the terminology. It is what it is. First band, second band, varsity, non-varsity.
Yeah,
Mhm.
we'll just stick with
So
it
we just roll with it.
for the purpose of the podcast.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Sure. And having already made the point that it takes all of us, and there should be no stigma one way or the other. So, okay. So again, back to your wheelhouse here, sir. I have had people compliment you, not in your presence, about your ability to incorporate the non-competitive autonomy into your classroom at a middle school level or a non-varsity level. How do you do that? How do you, I mean, and again, I think it's probably more in the educator's head than it is the kid's head.
Right. So I'll just tell you exactly what I've done, and it starts with beginners. So I have made objective sheets that they're actually a game, but they're objective sheets. So I've tricked my kids. Okay, they have little monsters or something next to a line in the book. Like line number 1 is this little monster called Franklin. If you can play line number 1, you've defeated Franklin. Okay,
wow.
and
Yeah.
so there's 5 lines per page. And
Cool.
And then there's a little story that goes with each one. A really silly story I wrote like 6 years ago and it barely changed. And so they finish that and they earn a level. And you can show a level through like a little zip tie or whatever you want to show the level through. Or you don't have to show the levels
Like a
at
belt.
all.
Yeah.
Yeah. Even if you don't show them, it doesn't matter because they feel like, oh, I defeated the thing.
Yeah.
And then once they defeat it, they get the next little story.
Level up. Yeah.
And they get the next 5 lines, and they see the growth on the page. And so it starts there with them taking ownership of their own playing and their own progress, much like in a video game. Okay,
Right.
And I've told Jett he could make a fortune if you just publish that.
I'm just not a business guy. Maybe somebody can help me one day. I'm just
Hey,
not.
You write it all out, I'll publish it for you.
It's written out. We'll talk
I'm
about
going to
it.
go ahead and
We'll talk
make
about
a
it.
note here.
I'll just take 15 off the top.
Okay, awesome. So
It's an amazing program, by the way. The
thank you.
kids, they love it. You know,
So we have days where I'll just write on the board. I call it band adventure, and I'll just write band adventure on the whiteboard, and I'll draw a sign up sheet, just little lines on the board so they can write their names in it, and then I'll say, okay, you know what to do. You have your main quest, which is the 5 lines. You have side quests, which could be their scales they play off, or maybe some other silly little thing I have them do. Like I have some notation worksheets, and I say write your own song using what we know. You know, that could be one of the side quests. So they go off and they do their own thing, or they're working partners, and they sign up, and I go listen to them, and they all play at the same time. They spread out around the room, and you'd be amazed at how many of them just stay on task and just do it and get excited about it. It's really neat. And so a lot of people might not like that because it sounds like they're just practicing in the band hall, but they're not. They're being peer evaluated. I'm evaluating them. They are all playing what they need to play at the same time. If somebody needs to play line 1, they're working on line number 1. If somebody is like on line 83, they're working on line 83. And so everybody is kind of tackling their next monster, their next dragon, whatever.
It's like D&D.
Oh yeah, I'm a big nerd. I'm a big nerd. I don't want to talk too much about that either.
Yeah. The kids buy into it, and I know any band would, but I really think for a non-varsity band, it kind of ties into what a lot of those kids are naturally interested in.
Right, it does.
What kid doesn't game these days? You know what I mean? So it ties into it, and they're like, hey, band's cool.
And even when they don't, just your kids that enjoy playing their instrument and enjoy making progress, I mean, they like it too.
Yeah.
It covers a lot more bases. And when I made it, I thought, I feel like I'm going to alienate a whole portion of students who aren't going to be into this lore or whatever I have going on. But it turns out they all just like playing stuff off and, getting their little initials. And
yeah, and a cool sideline to that is the top band doesn't do that.
No, but
so that's something the non-varsity kids, hey, guess what we get to do?
Yeah, and the non-varsity, and
this is special for us.
And I'm speaking mostly to beginners on that one, but for the varsity and non-varsity, we do something very similar. It's just not as story based. They're objective pages where we sign off, and I do even peer sign offs with director confirmation. Like a peer can sign off for you, but let me just hear a measure of that to make sure you really got it. Okay. Confirmation.
Nice.
Yeah.
So here's something I'm going to say out loud. That's something we discount to, because I'm telling you, a little gold star will make me do all kinds of things if it's going to go up so everybody can see I got a gold star.
Well, it's not even for everybody to see it. It's for you to feel some kind of affirmation for some hard work you've done, because it stinks to put all this work into it and then no one ever see it or acknowledge it. Like that is so disincentivizing.
That's a better way to say that. The trumpet player in me came out. I want everybody to see.
No, I understand. I got
you. He'd wear the stars on his chest during class.
On my forehead.
And I'm just somebody. I just want somebody to say, "Hey, you're doing a good job," and my day's made.
Yeah.
Okay. So, but again, Mike started there. Translate that into your group when you're teaching them, when you're preparing them for whatever, whether it's evaluation or a concert or whatever. How are you using that?
Okay, so. We have when you have a group of people together, it'd be a shame not to utilize all those brains to actually work together to enhance your product, right? So after they learn to become individually autonomous and think about themselves and how I play, they can then start thinking about other people and helping them, which also helps them. So I have a couple of steps to help my students become autonomous and actually learn most of their music without me teaching it to them. So step number 1 is I train them to lead student-led sectionals. And of course, you have to have the space to do this, but let's assume you have space. You can divide your kids up into like a little flute circle, clarinet circle, trumpet circle, maybe use an ensemble room, maybe use cafeteria, whatever. If you have two teachers in the room, they can split up and help facilitate. But you split them up into groups and you give them a list of objectives like, hey, I want to get through measures 1 through 20 in this piece, and I want it to be at like 90% good right now. Just notes and rhythms. Just let's make it rehearsable. And then I also give roles to the kids. There's a facilitator, somebody who's in charge of keeping everybody on task. There's a director who's in charge of count-offs and tempo. And there's a
student director.
Yeah. Sorry, let me say that again. There's a student who is a director or conductor who counts off, and then there's someone else who's a timekeeper. You can make up more roles, but those are the main 3 ones. And the timekeeper is just like, hey, we've been working on this for 7 minutes, and the facilitator can go, okay, I think we need 1 more minute, or facilitator can say, all right, it's time to move on to the next thing. And so they learn to do that. And then the next step after that is mini bands, where they communicate with the students of mixed instrumentation. I divide my band into 3 or 4 little bands and split them off and have them rehearse themselves with the same roles. And so they have to communicate how their parts fit with each other's. I keep a score with each section. And listen, even with non-varsity bands, you'd be surprised at how well they do at this. Like there's some magic that happens. And as a director, sometimes we'll say something to this is kind of a different point, but as a director, sometimes we'll say something to a student and they just don't get it, and we need a translator. And those translators are other students. And so sometimes they can say the same thing you've said to a student and it'll click, just because it's their peer saying it the right way.
Right.
So we do that, and then so think of this like a weekly structure. On one day they'll do sectionals, the next day they'll do mini bands, the next day we'll bring it together and see what it's like all together. Okay. And then if you want to get really fancy, have a student come up and conduct the whole band after you've worked on it.
How cool.
That is great.
Yeah.
And I was going to make some funny slang interjections about Risen and Skibbity and all that kind of stuff, how they can talk to each other in a way that they all understand. But I also think that there is, I love to watch students given responsibility, how seriously they take that responsibility and how emphatic they can be to say, no, we're going to do that better.
Right.
And it's so different than Jett standing in front of the group going, we probably need to make that better.
Mm-hmm. And it's so different.
It is different.
Yeah. The other thing that happens as a consequence of this is when you get back in front of the students, they know more of where you're coming from and how difficult your job is to actually get all these students to do what you want them to do.
Yeah.
And they actually rehearse better the day after you do this.
Is if you're digging a ditch, if they dig a ditch the day before, they understand what it's like to dig a ditch. Yeah. They understand. And I think
go ahead. I'm sorry.
Go ahead. I was going to say a real good point is I think sometimes we make the correlation that the top band kids, the varsity band kids, are intelligent, and the non-varsity kids are not as intelligent.
Oh, yep.
And it's in some cases it's true, but I've had some very intelligent, like salutatorians in my second band on flute, and I've had some real ditzy first chair clarinets that were not intelligent. We're not intelligent at all with any common sense. So sometimes we get afraid as a director, well, it's my non-varsity group, I better not give them much responsibility because, but they just didn't play as well.
So
it's not stupid.
Yeah. So speaking on responsibility, and I got to be careful how I talk about this because this is
still working. I can slide part.
And I don't want to. Okay, so I've had students who may have had behavior issues in other classes, not band, who may have, maybe they go to ISS a lot or they get detention or whatever. Okay, that stuff happens. I can think of two right now that were in that position that as soon as I gave them responsibility in my room, made them a facilitator, it like they just took it on like they were one of the best kids I've ever had.
Isn't that cool? If they're rocking the boat, give them a paddle.
Yeah.
This is an old man thing to say, but idle hands, the devil's playground.
Yeah.
Nobody's expected anything from them, maybe.
Right.
Or given them the opportunity to show what they can actually do. Everybody's made assumptions and they just buy into it. Because if you hear something about yourself often enough, wow, I just jumped off a completely different ledge. Sorry. But if you hear something about yourself often enough, you start to believe it.
Oh, yeah.
And if somebody turns around and says, I think you would be great as the facilitator, would you do that for us? And let them find that out about themselves. What a great concept. So just throwing that out.
You should see it in action. I've been out there just to watch, and it's absolutely amazing. Because a kid might actually show up for band, even though they're seventh chair trumpet, because they feel that I'm the facilitator.
Yeah, they have a job to do.
They've gave me something to do instead of I'm seventh chair trumpet, and if I never showed up again, they'd never miss me. It's the same thing in church. It's you can sit in a pew, but as soon as you have something to do, you feel more of an obligation to show up for your fellow people.
Yep.
Well, I'm giving you both permission right now to rein this back in, but I'm going to tell you, in my observation, we've become such an anonymous society through social media, through internet, through all the things, and better or worse, what we had to experience through the COVID years, that people are used to not being seen anymore. or don't expect to be seen. And when somebody says, I see you, I recognize this, I think you could be awesome. We don't even know how to act anymore. What do you mean? Until they feel what it means to be part of that group, and or that responsibility becomes theirs instead of just some faceless thing.
That sounds like fear of failure. Like once there's more expectations on, some people are like this, where they get more expectations thrusted upon them and then they shut down because they're like, if I don't try, I can't fail, or I can't feel disappointment, or I can't feel this or that. So that sounds like what you're speaking to right now. And again, that's just.
But even more than that, it's the community aspect of what we do in music was kind of taken away from us when we weren't able to do it.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so sometimes we have to teach now things that we didn't have to teach before. Maybe that's wrong. Like, this is what it means to be part of a community.
Right.
This is your part of that.
I agree with you on that. Directly after COVID, especially the first, second, third, fourth year after COVID. I'm sorry for saying the C word so much, but after COVID, the students just didn't know how to comply to simple instructions because they were left alone for so long. And that's not the parents' fault. That's just the situation.
I don't know that we can blame any person for that.
Parents got to work. It's just what it was. And so you give the students an expectation, and they just couldn't find a reason to follow it. It's like in some ways they kind of wisened up to, if I don't do this, I don't have to. And so the way that I approach discipline had to drastically change. I had to just draw lines way sooner than I used to. I had to I couldn't let smaller things go like I used to and think they'll just get better. Because I made that mistake my first year after COVID. I tried to smooth some things out with the beginner class, just kind of help build relationships, all this stuff. It didn't work, and they just weren't used to being held to a standard. So that's the main thing I saw. And also the social part, the kids were just more likely to say mean things to each other, and they didn't know how to give each other affirmation. And so I think practicing, that's why I like doing these little sectionals and stuff, is the kids have to give affirmations to each other and how they're playing, and build those relationships. And, it's good to tease each other a little bit. That's part of it. That's fine. But you need to be mostly positive. And that's why we have directors listening and facilitating and making sure that
Cool.
that language is appropriate.
That's one of my favorite South Pacific songs. You have to be carefully taught.
Yeah.
Whether that's negative or positive.
Right.
So, cool.
Hope that was in line with what you were saying.
It was. But my point was more that I think we as educators of a certain age thought we could fall back instantly to what we did in the 90s, in the 2000s. How did we teach then? That kids are kids, right? But we created a new world through that time period, and we won't keep harping on it.
Right.
Where maybe we do have to adjust the way we encourage or help them encourage themselves.
Well, yeah. It's again, just make sure they feel like they're part of a team and you're not some dictator in front of them. That's it. I think in the past you probably could say, do this, do that. I don't know if you could or not. I don't know if I ever could do that.
You could at one time.
Yeah. Okay.
It wasn't healthy, but that's how I was brought up.
Yeah, but
That's how I was brought up. The director was the fire hydrant of discipline.
Yeah.
They just told you what to do and you did it.
if the students don't see value in it, they won't do what you want.
And I think that's important to say.
I completely understand that.
Yeah. And kids are smarter today.
They are.
The
Yep.
kids
And
right
I
now
also-
are smarter than when I was growing up.
Mhm.
I don't think that is a level of band concept. That's a kid period concept.
Mhm.
So I just didn't know if you felt that more. I just think that's awesome. You struck that chord with me with creating facilitators and timekeepers and responsibility.
Yeah.
Amongst themselves. So that was my thought.
That's cool.
So next on your list, my friend, what is another challenge you face as the director of a non-varsity group versus, and listen, I think there's probably just as many challenges at all the groups, but specifically towards the non-varsity.
Okay, so the biggest difference, and this is a middle school level in general thing, but I think more towards non-varsity. Your job as a non-varsity director is, besides the emotional part, is to fill in all the gaps. Okay. These are students who maybe they didn't learn to count very well their first year. Maybe they can't recognize all their notes as well, or they're having tone issues or whatever. The list goes on. Okay. And so your job is to fill in gaps. And that means you have to be extremely structured in what you're doing. And you have to get your ears on individuals, not just sections, not just the band, individuals all the time. That includes counting. I want to hear every individual count. Now, I don't want to sit, this is me, I don't want to sit in my rehearsal of 60 kids and go, okay, you count, measure one. Okay, now you count, measure two. That's not going to work. Okay, that's going to be, everybody's going to be sitting around wasting time. So how do you get ears on everybody, like I said, and save time? And so it's easy if you have another director, you can do pullouts and have them do it. Or you can do what I was saying before, where, okay, today we're passing off objectives, spread out. And when you're ready, I want to come around and I'm going to listen to you count your measures. I'm going to listen to you play off your scale or whatever it is you're listening to. And everybody's active the whole time. And then I pop in and get an ear on what I need to evaluate, say, hey, do it again, work on this. Then I pop out to the next person. And that's really worked for me. I did it a lot more this last year than I had before. And I feel like my band was stronger this year because we did that. Another way to reach individuals is doing things like solo and ensemble. And I'm going to completely approach solo and ensemble different next year. I have some ideas. So I want to start with the easiest solo I can find. And it's just part of our warm up every day, or maybe every other day. And then when that one's good, we've learned all the fundamentals I want to in that, we'll go to another solo. So when we get to solo and ensemble, they have a whole portfolio of solos that they're comfortable with, they can pick from and work up. And I don't know, students working on music individually like that, that's catered to them, will make them stronger too and fill in more of those gaps.
Okay, let me ask an ignorant question. There are methods out there. This is not the ignorant part. There are method books out there that are festival solo books. They're
Those are great.
created so every instrument can play the same solo.
Yeah.
I don't know if they're created that they could play them all at the same time. I don't know that. But is that what you're talking about, incorporating that into the warm-up?
Yeah, so you can transpose stuff if you need to, or write out, write out parts if they're missing. It takes some time up front, but once you have it written out, it's done, and you can build your portfolio, your repertoire.
Cool. Sounds genius to me, Mr. Lenny.
Oh yeah, and even if you're just doing an in-house thing, I guarantee I did helped out at one school with 2 feeders doing their solo contest, no ensemble, just solos, and then a couple of other middle schools in the city. And those kids are so nervous, and it's so they dress up nice, and you would think they were here for the Dallas Fort Worth Concerto contest, and it's so cool because they want to do so well, and they have that opportunity where you can write critique down and you can talk to them for a second and say, man, you get a beautiful sound. You're going to be a great performer in the high school band someday, just kind of for a tuba player, because we want those tubas. You know what I mean? So it's a great opportunity to create quality kids with a system in place instead of everyone has to play a solo. Here's the music.
And I've worked with 2 great directors who've done that. Josh Howarth, who is at Jim Ned, and then Pearl Gonzalez is the head director at Clack. They both do an in-house solo competition, and Pearl even plays the piano parts, accompanies them while they do it.
That's cool.
I do a little bit of it. I'm not as good as she is, but I can learn the easy ones, and play along with them. And so,
But you know what's amazing to me? I'm thinking back. Again, I'm ancient. I get it. But I remember in junior high, them saying solo and ensemble contest is coming up. Basically look at me and go, you're going to play a solo. Here, I recommend that. And then it was all on me to go home and try to figure this thing out and find an accompanist. And so kudos for making that feel more like a normal course, because it just felt like something we did outside of band.
well,
But you're creating an opportunity for them to do that as an integral part of this program.
yeah, we don't want any barriers to do anything. And then that includes solo and ensemble. No accompaniment fees, no outside the school stuff. Just everything's done in class. We rehearse it together.
Even the performance, right?
Yes, it's in school class.
So their parents don't have to come up at 7 at night
Exactly.
and drop off the kid.
Or drop them off at Midland College and come pick them up 4 hours later,
Yeah.
or wherever the local place is. So, okay, that's awesome stuff. What else you got? By the way, I'm really appreciating your shirt today. That's so off topic.
Oh,
those
yeah,
parrots?
Yeah.
They are parrots. Yeah.
Got a Margaritaville.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
Yeah,
Kind of a
I-
June vibe going on. I
Got
like
it from my favorite store, Goodwill. Yeah.
They have all the good stuff. That's why they're Goodwill.
That's right. I needed some Goodwill.
Yeah.
So I don't know your exact stance on evaluations. I know that we all have to do 'em. Concert contest.
It's complicated.
So
Yeah.
without and you know, we've had such fantastic conversations with one of your peers before with Steven on some of this, but translate that to your group. I think we kind of brushed across how we have to pick music. We've kind of brushed across the instrumentation of it. Do you find that you have to teach that season differently, whether that's, you know, building up to a level where it's performable, or, you know, you can't spend too much time, they get bored and they just quit caring? Is any of that factor into the non-varsity group?
I mean, the only in a sense of, golly, you said a whole lot. I got to unpack real quick. So the first
do
thing is how do I prepare my students? Let's talk about the mental part. How do I prepare them mentally for approaching a UIL season? The thing I don't want to do. Okay, let me say that differently. I want to set them up for success, and
Yeah.
I want it to be like success looks like XYZ, and I don't want XYZ to include a rating number. Okay, I want XYZ to be like, okay, how did we rehearse going up to UIL? How did we like our music? You know, did we enjoy the process every day? Did we accomplish what we wanted to in our student-led sectionals? And if we do all that, the rating doesn't matter as much. It really doesn't. There's 5 ratings for a reason. You know, I don't want to go in going, oh, a 2 is a failure. You know, that's not true. A 2 is excellent, and for a non-varsity band, that's a great rating. You know what I mean?
Right.
And so, my band director ego brain, I want to get a first division, but I try not to let that spill over into my teaching.
Well, we have adopted the student is the product thought process
Right.
over the course of our podcast here. We kind of strongly preach that when we get the opportunity. So, what are we doing to make our students successful, regardless of the Kleenex box size award trophy?
Right.
And this is just kind of my opinion on it, but with a varsity group, you can kind of push them a little bit harder, and you can discuss the rubrics, and you can say, these are the things that the adjudicators will be looking at. I really feel like for a non-varsity group, probably should never even talk about it.
I never talk.
You know, you just say, we're going to go play at UIL, and they're going to give us this number. And I notice, like, I'm looking at his notes, his goals. Nowhere on his goals does it say make a first division.
Mm-mm.
Now, it'll probably end up being a first division for the fact that it doesn't say first division on his notes.
Yeah.
And I tell you another thing, quiet part out loud again, Mike Lenny. UIL has dropped the ball big time, because I've judged a lot of panels, and the bands that get most of the rainbows and the skewed ratings are the non-varsity, because there's a little tiny terminology that says plays with consistent good tone or plays sometimes good tone, but it always says per classification.
Okay.
The judges forget that part. So I'll have a non-varsity, a sub non-varsity from a 4A school, and they'll play, and I'll say, you know, for a sub non-varsity per classification, that's a good tone quality, and they play well. That's a first division. But the guy next to me might give him a 3 because he teaches a varsity 6A band in Austin, Texas. You know, so that Jett knows what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
You've got the cards are stacked against you. So you've just got to teach the music. And I hate to say it this way, but screw UIL. Who cares?
I mean, yeah.
You know, for the non-varsity group, you're just teaching kids. Who cares?
I want the music to sound good, and the kids know when it sounds good and when it doesn't. Okay, so if we get done and we can perform, and the parents are happy, and they get some good comments from their friends and stuff, then, I mean, that's pretty cool. They're getting their affirmation, and
Yeah.
they're getting better. And so, and for the reasons he mentioned, those rainbows and stuff, that's a reason I don't want to emphasize ratings too much.
Yeah.
I just again, it doesn't matter. It
Yeah.
really. It matters to some people. I got to say this the right way. It matters to some people. It is an indicator of certain things in some ways. It really is, but it shouldn't be your focus.
And a hard discussion to have with your the head director or the high school director, if you're a non-varsity director, is the idea of how far do we push the kids on level of music? Because I know some head directors out there that will sink their non-varsity band because, well, we've got to play a grade 5 when they're in the honor band, and so you guys need to be playing grade 3 at least, and it's a killer. My opinion on it was I always just ask the non-varsity directors, play the music they can play best and try to get close to that level, because if they can play with a good sound and play in tune and play phrases and breathe correctly and sit correctly and not tear apart their horns, and if they can do all of that, they will be a good band student for me. But if you tell them they've got to play the first movement of Prelude Siciliano and Rondo and the kids don't learn a dang thing, then you're in trouble as the quote head director. You've led them the wrong direction.
So we don't work on UIL music all year. So there's other opportunities to push them. Spring concert's a great time. I don't think, in my philosophy, I don't think an 8th grader should leave 8th grade never playing a lyrical piece. I think that's an important skill to have. And so if you can throw, even if it's a non-varsity band, throw a lyrical piece at them for a spring concert. I mean, I wouldn't recommend it for UIL unless you just have one of those groups that you feel comfortable doing that with, and the kids will like it. But odds are probably not, right? But I think they should be exposed to those things, and the spring concert is the time for it.
I just also think that maybe it's easy for me to say from my perspective, but I think we worry too much about what our peers are going to think about our program instead of what is healthy for our kids in the program. And Mike has said this before, play what you can and play what you can play well for a UIL presentation. Pay what you wish you could play
or want
on
to
your
play.
spring concert.
Yeah, what you want to play and what you wish you could play only
in the band hall only.
And I vested up. I don't always get that calibration right for UAL, especially if it's the top group. With the top group, I can calibrate too much this way. But
my point is being,
happens.
you're still teaching those kids how to be better musicians, even if it's a 0.5, even if it's a grade 1, as opposed to, well, I want all my friends to think I'm doing a good job. And listen, I'm exaggerating.
No, you're not. But you're not exaggerating.
It's a real thing.
The other dynamic to that is like, Jett loves his job and does a great job at it. But a first-year teacher coming out and doing the non-varsity band, they kind of know if they do a string of 2s in 4 years, there's no one that's going to hire them.
Yeah.
No matter how well that band progressed. I'm telling the truth. The first thing those guys do when they're looking at candidates, they look at UIL Texas Music Forums, and some of those resumes get tossed because they were 2nd, 3rd division band directors, even though they were in teaching kids to the highest level, and the kids were being prepared as well as they could be. But UIL screwed them.
Yeah.
They don't even consider the situation they were in, though.
Oh, no, they don't care.
They don't know, like,
dumb directors don't care.
Yep, I think your references matter a lot more than those numbers. You know what I mean? Talk to somebody who's been in that classroom, someone reliable that's observed that person teach. That's the best way to do it. I don't think, this is my opinion, I don't think that UIL ratings should be posted publicly at all. Like
I agree with that.
In a list that lives on forever.
We are the only state that does that.
Yeah.
How's that?
It's brutal.
We're the only state that publicly post every UIL rating, every marching ordinal.
And I think that's why it feels like such a gut check if you don't get the ratings you want, and I've tried to switch. I mean, there was a time where if I saw a 2, it was just like I got stabbed.
Yeah.
I'm out of that mindset now, and I hope I stay that way. But
yeah, well, I only 2nd division by Wiley varsity bands in 40-something years was earned by Mike Lunny.
Listen, we just
so I know
talked
what you're saying.
We
It
just
is what
talked
it
to
is.
Brian Hekamovich talking about his high school experience. They got a 2, and they erupted. That it was, and everybody was like, they were so excited because they had gotten to that level.
Yeah, yeah,
exactly.
It was a reward for them to get that rating.
Yeah,
and I think that's the healthy side of, if there is one.
Yeah,
we're better than we've ever been.
Yeah, and a smart person who's hiring people will see past the published rating and give some phone calls. and say, "Hey, I noticed that so and so they had 3 years in a row. They had a 2 in concert and a 1 in sight reading. Can you tell me about their teaching?"
Mm-hmm.
And instead of like, throwing away the application just because you saw that, that
Right.
you have to get past that point.
Mhm.
Stats, Mark Twain said it best. He said there's lies and there's statistics, and they're both lies.
And they're both lies.
They're both lies. And I always thought that's a great Mark Twain quote.
Well, do me a favor, Jett. Encourage some of those young teachers that might be listening. Encourage some of those people who are like, man, this is what I'm going to do this coming year. Where's my win? Or where's my focus? Or how do I make this the best experience I can make it?
What's my why?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, the simple answer is the why is those little human beings sitting right in front of you, that have hopes, dreams, aspirations. That go home to a family, sit around the dinner table, and hopefully talk about your class and how awesome it was. Like you do it for that. You do it for all the goofy moments you have in class where something really funny happened and they can't wait to get home and share. Oh man, I can't believe so and so did this, or the director did this. That's why you want to do it. You need to make those connections. You want the kids to fall in love with band, and that's just shit. This is their band experience. This is
Right.
it. So make it a good one.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Anything
well
you'd
said.
add, Mr. Lunny?
Oh, just kind of, I mean, I hate to piggyback on it because it was so well spoken. But those kids don't have to be in band. I mean, mama might have made them, but even if mama makes them, they don't have to come through that door. They can go hide in the bathroom.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? They can come in and destroy equipment. They're sitting there for a reason. They really do want to learn. They really do want to have a good experience. And sometimes I think directors miss that point. They see him as these kids don't want to be here. They're the non-varsity kids, whatever. They're the lizard band, and they sell them way, way short because you'll have just as many discipline problems in your honor group or your varsity band as you will with your non-varsity group.
So let me throw this at you and you can tell me, nope, Derek, you missed it. You weren't listening. It might be, what can I do to add value to this person's experience?
Amen, brother.
What can I do, regardless of what anybody else, whatever other perception there is out there? What are we going to do at the end of the year to say, God, that was fun?
Yeah.
Or, God, that
That's
was
it.
awesome.
Yeah, whatever good or bad happens in your rehearsals, it's because of the director. You must take that responsibility.
Mhm.
He has a well laid out plan and the kids understand it. And the things that happen good is because of his organization and his personality and his planning. But I've heard so many directors, the kids are just apathetic. They just don't care.
Facebook and stuff.
Yeah, the kids don't care. And no, they probably don't because the director's not really teaching. And I know I'm getting some blowback on that. People, you don't understand. You haven't taught at my school. They might be right, but I don't think they are. But
I'm also gonna-
I think the kids will respond to organized good teaching.
I'm gonna finish my thought with this though, and listen, take this however you want to from whatever philosophical stand you say. You have the opportunity to speak life or not. You create the environment with your heart and your mouth and the things that you say and the way that you speak to these young people.
Mm-hmm.
It has nothing to do with their talent level. It
Mm-hmm.
has nothing to do with their previous experience. You can change the environment with your heart and your mindset and the things that you allow to come out of that pie hole.
Yep.
So get a little bit deep on you there, but I do firmly believe that you create your world.
Yeah.
With the,
Yes.
And when you mess up, make it up to them.
Yeah.
Because we all mess up.
And acknowledge it.
Exactly.
Say it. Say it.
It's okay. Hey, I screwed up yesterday, and this
Whoops.
isn't working right. Oops. And the
Uh-huh.
kid's like, "Yeah, you did."
Oh, I did it. I've done it in the moment where I'm like, I get really intense with the section. I go, I'm sorry, I may not have been clear. I'm sorry I went off like that. Let's just try it again.
Yeah. Let's play it again.
Yeah, exactly.
and okay.
Anyway.
Man, what a great conversation. Thank you, sir.
Yeah.
Hey, thanks for having me.
I told you, Jett, it'd be great.
Yeah, I'm already looking to figure out when we could reschedule another conversation.
Oh yeah, it'd be
So,
fun.
And I asked you to do it once, but so I won't do it again. Thank you for encouraging those of us who may or may not have had the right mindset about what we're doing. I'm not the head director. I don't get all the good kids. Yeah, you do. You get great kids.
That's right.
So let's have a great year. Mr. Lundy, thanks for suggesting this. That's
bet.
awesome. So
Yeah.
you guys have fun this summer, my friend. Wear that parrot shirt and go have a nice, refreshing beverage somewhere. But
Do parrot things.
I am the biggest. I don't get to do it on here because I guess I just make myself not do it. But I love a good Hawaiian shirt or I'm bright colors. So I really was serious about your shirt. I like it.
Well, thank you.
Mike, have a great week.
Will do.
Jett, have a great summer.
You too.
All right, man. We'll talk
This is
later.
fun.
Bye.